Okay, so I'm getting into the fun stuff now. I've spent the better part of yesterday wrestling with that dashboard, even though there's plenty of videos that show you how to take the dashboard out. I was managed to leave a couple of things out, and there's some hidden fasteners up in and around the steering column way up in the back. A real pain to get everything out of there. Main thing is that they used to take the plastic ductwork and screw it to the bottom of the dashboard itself. And one of the videos that I watched, I think it was a 2008 Challenger, it was still screwed to the bottom. Well, I didn't know that it no longer is. Somebody finally got smart about that. But even though I released all the screws for the ductwork, there's a piece of plastic that holds a large vent plenum here for the defroster ducts. Now that whole thing sticks up about that high, so trying to lift this dashboard up and around this plastic box for the airbag, and also up and around this plenum was a bit nightmarish, and I'm feeling it today, being crouched in that car for about 6 hours trying to manipulate things out without breaking everything, because everything, as you know, is made out of plastic. And so, you try to be take your time and be methodical as possible, but it gets to be exasperating after a while with some of these designs on some of these fasteners. I went ahead and took the quarter windows out because I wanted to be able to cut this roof in sections, because the last one I had to handle by myself. That roof structure all in one go is a really heavy piece, so no need to try and save it for any reason. The roof skin is not good, and some of the substructure underneath of it's bent, so no reason to try and get that in one piece. Now the windshield itself, it's a shame. It's nothing wrong with the windshield, but I don't have the proper tools to deglaze this. You need like an abrasive wire to get in there, and two guys, and by the time you spend the time to get it out, again, I think a new windshield somewhere's around between $300 and $600, depending on where you go. It's a lot of work to retrieve this one out without breaking it, and then maybe you'll get maybe $100 for it, I suppose, if you can. This other side over here, when I decided to, you got to basically get the steering column out of the steering wheel out of the way to get the dashboard out. So on the last couple of cars, I kind of struggled a bit because I didn't want to remove the steering wheel and get involved with the clock spring that's in there or anything, and take any chances that it would spin and break the clock spring. So rather than deal with any of that, what I do is there's 4 bolts that hold the steering column up to this dash subframe, and then I just drop the whole steering column. Now, the last couple of cars, like I said, I struggled a little bit because this thing is, it's got a lot of joints in it back there, and it wants to pivot and go all over the place when you finally do release it. And then once you do release it, it hits the bottom of the frame, so it doesn't go all the way to the floor, so you've got to stabilize the wheel. So this time what I did, just for an experiment, but it worked out okay, was I took a board and I bolted it down to the seat mount in the front over here, and then I secured this little scissor jack, screwed that down to the board, and then I put a little platform on there with some foam so that I could loosely grab the bottom of the steering wheel. The steering wheel at the bottom is a little bit flattish as it is, and that way all I had to do is, once I released the 4 bolts, is just take this and just wind this down and let this thing drop gently on its own, and now it's not really tight, but it's secure. It's not flopping all over the place, and I'm not going to kick it and make a mess of the steering wheel with all of the nice little paddles and doodads that it's got on there. But anyway, like I said, the most difficult part right now is starting to cut away the inner below the windshield bed over here, the inner metal, and trying to dig out all these foam chunks that are in there so that I can get to the forward seam here, maybe cut it along here. Also, what I'm not looking forward to is there's a strong. I think it's like a pipe. At least it was on the last one, of some strengthened metal, almost like a roll cage member here that I got to try and cut through. There's multiple layers underneath in here, and while that side's not an issue so much, just take a sawzall and cut through it. Over on this side, it's this hardened metal, for safety. It's like a safety cage, so I mean, it just ruins blades and makes a mess. And at any rate, so that's where I'm at right now. I've got to try and start deskinning this whole thing, but I'm gonna start with this windshield bed and see where I go from here. Okay, so after digging all the foam out, I was able to see my way clear to see the final layer, a single layer of sheet metal that's out in front underneath the windshield. And it also allowed me to see around the corner a little bit into this A-post over here and kind of plan my path cutting across here. I used a combination of the cutoff wheel and also the sawzall, depending on how hard the metal was that I was trying to cut through, and taking my time not to generate too much heat or too big of a stream of sparks to set any remaining foam on fire. I cut the top of this inner dash structure, this frame. There's a tab that holds the corner of the dash. It'll have to be welded back later, but that has to be modified anyway. At any rate, so I cut around through, like I said, with a combination of the cutoff wheel and a small air saw. Saw a large sawzall blade going through here when possible. Some areas like this are triple thick here, the actual windshield bed itself, so that had to be very carefully cut with a cutoff wheel, because the sawzall blade wouldn't cut through all of that without burning up, so without generating, again, a lot of sparks, just taking it a little at a time. And then once I got past there, this is just a single layer of very thin sheet metal over here. As you can see, it's doubled up here, so I just was able to cut down into that cavity where I pulled all the foam out right around here to the center point over there, so that this corner of the windshield and the A-post are now free. On the driver's side, it's a little more awkward having to work around the steering column still being in the car, but over here I took the top portion of this bracket away. This has to be modified anyway to get out of the way of the windshield wiper mechanism, so that has to be relocated, so that I can get in here and do the same process over here. Cut this out at this point here, and then up at the top, remove this, dig out the foam so I can see where I'm cutting over into here, and then I'll proceed with the rest of that in a minute here. Okay, so I got that cut loose. Rather than try and take the glass out of the frame, I had to cut the A-posts anyway, so I went ahead and cut across the A-posts and across the base of the glass, and then across the top of the roof, since the roof was not salvageable anyway, and I attached a little hook point to it and got that off, and so we're good to go now. And so that's kind of like what that looks like right there, all the way across. Still got some more foam to dig out, and more cutting to do eventually to get down, get rid of all of this excess metal here. But now I'll just work my way to the back, taking it off a section at a time. Anyway, that was the toughest one right there. All right, the debulking operation continues. So from here, I'm going to have to get this thing up on jack stands, get the tires off, disconnect the fuel line, and the fuel filler, I should say, and start getting a little more serious. It's easy to get most of this stuff off because it's mostly a sawzall activity, but from here on out, there's some areas I'm going to have to be a little bit more careful with. Anyway, the butchery continues. Just thought I'd show you an example of why these cars are so hard to take the outer panels off and save them. This is a really spongy foam that they put in here as a noise reduction element in here. I have no idea how you would get inside this panel without damaging it to cut this up all the way along here. It fills up this entire cavity over here, so trying to pull that off, you're definitely going to wrinkle that panel, and of course everything else is glued on. So you'll have to release all the glue around the edges, which I guess if you heat it up, you can do that, make a stinky mess. But at any rate, I just thought I'd show you that. That's an example of just pushing foam into every corner and every cavity on these cars anymore. So, all right, still working on trying to get the outer skin off as much as possible. Anyway, before I start drilling out these spot welds over here to get the rest of the remnants off, so that I get this second layer of material off. At any rate, you see, been contending with a lot of foam in the rockers, and so that all has to be cleared away so I could see the spot welds, drill them out. There's enough room, by the way, between the skin and this understructure here all the way along that I was able to take, instead of cutting with a Sawzall or cutting with the cutoff wheel, which generates a lot of sparks, and the blade on the Sawzall being pretty long. I'm just using this little air saw with a little small reciprocating blade here, and basically just going right along this inner seam here. And it's less violent, throws less sparks. Just taking my time to get each layer off cleanly, instead of just going hog wild with the Sawzall and cutting through everything. So anyway, just thought I'd bring up to speed where I'm at, just on this side. Still have the other side to do too, but I'm going to get this side here cleaned up pretty good before I go over there. Okay, so I pulled this piece off by drilling out the spot welds, and I don't know if I'll be able to use it again, but I sure would like to add this back to the car, since I have the opportunity, in the sense that in order for me to wide body this car, these quarter panels are going to have, once this is mounted on this car, the quarter panels will be cut off so that I can pull them out for the wide body. With the quarter panels off, I'll have an opportunity to beef up this structure in here again. This may fit right back in. Of course, it'll be shorter, but it'd be nice to be able to put that back in there, and also put this structure back in. If I can't, I can't. It's no big deal, but I like to leave myself the option to do it. So that's what I'm up to now. Okay, I'm wanting to remove this frame rail here, which is basically shaped like a hat channel here, but it also has a plate across the back side of it. Now, normally all you'd have to do is drill out the spot welds here along the way, and then down along the pinch weld here, and then it would fall off because that's the way it's attached. But it's filled with foam all the way in here. So what's going on is the entire surface of that back plate is contacted together with this foam. So what I've had to do is, after I take a chisel and open up this seam a little bit, put some wedges in it, and then this is like a tree saw you would use to cut branches. So it's used, when you pull on it, it cuts, as opposed to a hand saw that you would use, for some wood, which you would push cut. So that's ideal, because then you just work it down to the bottom on the back side of that, and you pull up, and as you pull up, it cuts the foam just nicely. Except it doesn't have a handle, so I had to tape that up and keep it from cutting my fingers. But I'll just hopscotch these wedges down here until I cut through the foam, so that this thing can flop over and out of there. Okay, so that's what it looks like after battling to get that off. As you can see in the front, I just cut it here for now. It goes further in. This will all have to be slowly chopped out as I dig this foam out. Like I said, I've got to go easy, making sure that I don't set this stuff on fire. I've done it before, and it's not an exciting thing to see this stuff catch on fire, especially inside your door pillar here. You've got wiring, you got all kinds of good stuff in there, and it's not nice to see orange flames come licking up out of there. So yeah, now I've got to turn around and Yeah, just take this foam out of here, clean this up a little bit better before I move on to my next whatever project is going to be. Okay, so that's it for the passenger side process of what I call debulking, getting rid of the obvious stuff that's in the way. So I've got to rinse and repeat on the other side of the car. Before I can do that, I got a bunch of stuff that's starting to collect up here. It's taking up a lot of room, so I've got to get this. Got to get a few things into storage and out of my way here, so I can proceed. Pull this car out a little bit away from the rack over there, so I can work things like that. And then I'll proceed with the other side, debulk it, and go on from here. So I'm going to leave the video here for now, and we'll drag you through all that process of which is basically the same as what I just did here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.